Hi, my name's Damien and this is Enneagram Life, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about Enneagram Type 7 and how to be a success as Enneagram Type 7. So, admittedly, everyone has a different definition of success, and this is kind of look more about achievement in terms of a lot of society's concepts of achievement. Now, Type 7, like the Type 7 are pretty much, they're always going to tell you they're happy. Well, not always, but like a lot of the time, they're going to tell you that they're happy. And it wouldn't even matter if they were severely depressed or if they'd been severely depressed by years, because 7 can be fairly prone to depression, Type 7. And so there is definitely some severely depressed Type 7s. But even if you were to ask them, are you happy? There's a very good chance they're going to tell you they're happy, because in that moment they probably were. And even if they had been depressed for years and that very day they had spent like 16 hours in bed out of depression, when you're asking them, that's probably the time when they're out socializing and they're out of the house. And in that moment, they probably are feeling pretty good. And they're going to tell you they're happy and totally forget all about the last few years, forget about the 16 hours they spent in bed that day. And they're going to say that because they're really keyed into that in the moment, that feeling, that impulsiveness. And if they're feeling that, then they're going to tell you, yeah, I'm happy. So, that is kind of like happiness is often gauged as a form of success. But you can't even, like, what people say doesn't even necessarily mean. Anyway, so looking at success more in terms of achievement, in terms of what society would regard as achievement. A lot of Enneagram Type 7s are not very successful, the ones that I've met. They haven't achieved a lot in terms of those type of things, those society goals, goal-orientated type of achievements. A lot of them that I've met don't finish courses, don't finish study courses, university courses, TAFE courses, that's technical college courses. They don't often now have a ton of different hobbies and not be at all good at any of the hobbies. They'll usually have all the equipment. They'll have bought all the equipment for your hobbies, but they won't be any good at any of them. And they might have 10 different hobbies and all the equipment lying around on the floor of wherever they live, totally unorganized. So like a lot of 7s are like this. And yeah, I've met quite a few 7s who their partner is fully supporting them, and they're usually doing a different thing every month. Like if you saw them monthly, they'd be doing a totally different life goal, like whatever that is, whether it's a new course or a new job or a new business, it'll be something totally different, which they won't develop. There's a lot of 7s out there like this. And there is 7s out there that are successful in terms of those society achievement type versions of success, which is what I'm looking at. So what is the difference? Like, why do so many 7s get lost in the whole ridiculousness of wanting to try something new, feeling trapped in whatever they're doing, feeling trapped in that pathway to achievement, and jumping off that path on a new path, which they quickly jump off again? Like, why so many 7s are like this? But there is the 7s out there that are achieving things. And so I want to give some examples. Like, I have met 2 7s who were doctors, like medical doctors. Now, Not that I'm personally saying a medical doctor is an extremely successful person. I think a medical doctor generally in society is held up as someone who has achieved something significant. So seeing those guys that were sevens is, I did think to myself, I was like, that's interesting. These dudes are sevens and they're doctors. They're medical doctors, so they've obviously done so much study at university. They've obviously done study beyond university in the medical profession. How did this happen? As a type 7, how did this happen to them? And yeah, I kind of sort of did think about that. And one day I was at a event where an Enneagram teacher was talking about the 7, and he mentioned the 7s and trance. His name was David. He's quite well known in the Enneagram circles in Australia. I don't like to mention people's last names. I want to give them, if I hear something from someone, I definitely want to mention who I heard it from, give them that recognition, but like, who knows if they want their last names mentioned, so I'll just leave there as a footnote. And anyway, so he mentioned trance and how the type 7s go into the trance. And that made me think like about this other type 7 who I knew. And she worked for this organization and she was really terrible at her job. Desk was super messy, never achieved anything. Pretty much she was employed there solely because it was extremely difficult to fire anyone in this organization. And also the boss enjoyed using her as a bit of a punching bag. He liked the fact that she didn't really defend herself. So she managed to maintain that job even though she was totally useless in it, and her house was totally like a total mess. She was one of those persons that had all these ridiculous hobbies, none of which she had spent any real significant time on. And I used to think about how she would attend all these meditation prayer sessions for this particular institute. And some of these sessions would go for hours, and she would regularly attend these. And I would think to myself, well, she has that type 7 dilettante thing, which makes her unsuccessful in these other avenues of her life. Housekeeping and hobbies and her job. But she manages to keep going to these meditation prayer groups, and I thought to myself, that's quite interesting. But then when this Enneagram teacher mentioned trance, I thought to myself, yeah, that makes sense. She must be in a trance state when she goes to these. That's how she gets through hours of contemplation, sitting there by yourself in contemplation. I thought to myself, that's interesting. She goes into this trance state. And I thought about that, and it sort of triggered that idea that, hey, those doctors are probably doing the same thing. That's probably how they managed to pass their medical degree, because they got into the study in a trance state. I also know a 7 who was a Japanese woman, and she spoke fluent English. It was really impressive. But she did nothing else. Like everything else in her life, she was terrible at. And terrible life choices. But I was like, but she can speak, this foreign language so well. And she maybe was doing that too. That's probably the mindset, get into that trance space. And I myself, learning foreign languages, did realize that comparing it to, say, other things I had studied in the past, like I had studied accounting, for example, which was, you had to have in front of you a calculator and textbooks, and you had to be working something out on paper. So you had all this paraphernalia, and you're working all this stuff out. So it was kind of a bit more active. But then when I studied language, you could kind of get into a trance state where it was like repeating the same thing, which was quite trance-like. And, you could probably do that with accounting as well if you did it in a different way, if you like structured it differently. My point is though that like you can turn something like study into a trance behavior. And this is probably the mechanism by which the type 7s that did succeed were using to succeed. They were probably learning all of these things via trance and a trance mechanism in their mind. So what do I mean by trance? It could be a whole video in itself, but like I think that idea of a trance state where you're repeating something, that's very trance-like. A lot of the trance beats and trance music are quite repetitive. But even people driving, that's a trance. Like when they drive a long drive, or it could even be a short drive, often they won't remember at all what happened during that drive, but they safely went from one place to the next. That's because they entered a trance state. So, yeah, I think that is a significant way that the type 7 can make themselves achieve things. And I will add to that I remember one of those doctors used to talk about how there's so many different fields in medicine. Like you could go down this massive rabbit hole with blah, blah, blah medicine. I don't know, maybe that was the study of neurology. Or you could go into this giant total rabbit hole of studying another form of medicine. My mind's drawing a blank, but so there's so many different forms of medicine. He'll talk about how there's so many different forms of medicines, and you go down this one pathway and it leads off to so many other different pathways. And remembering how he was talking about that, it's sort of like options. So he had made himself be in medicine, and now he was seeing medicine as like, you know how that type 7, they get into this state where they always think there's something better out there. And but he was seeing that, but only through medicine. So he was seeing like all these other options and possibilities and places you could go to within medicine. And I thought that was very much like using the 7 mentality in a way that could be successful, because instead of seeing tons of possibilities that he could be doing with his life, like I could go to Europe, I could become a IT specialist, I could learn massage, I could build my own house. Instead of seeing all these different possibilities, he saw all these different possibilities within medicine, and it was contained within one field that would probably encourage him to get through that, at least that medical course, and with the help of trance during his study periods. Anyway, that's about it. Hope this was interesting. Please like, comment, and subscribe.